Good evening. I'm Homer Hardage, Chair of the 2024 CRC Committee, Citizens Charter Review Commission. I'm going to call to order our meeting of January 30th, 2024. We'll start by having the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Member Wynn, and then we'll have a roll call. Okay, we thank you all for coming. We'll now have a roll call by our clerk.
Member Jackson.
Here.
Member De La Portilla. Here. Member Weinsberg.
Here.
Member Cowan. Here. Member Arias. Here. Member Grimmer.
Here.
Member Wynn.
Here.
Chair Hardage.
Here.
Vice Chair Shira. Member Baga.
Here.
Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Staccardo.
Present.
Member Adamson Prophet. Member Riley. Member Batchelor. You have a quorum.
We have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with brief comments by the chair and vice chair. Vice Chair Shira has not arrived yet. My comments are simple today. The reason we're having two meetings in January and February is to give us enough time for our committees to kind of start rushing towards the finish line. So those of our chairs that are here, that's what that extra time was for. So I just will ask, as you give your committee presentations today, if you will give us just a brief word or two as to where you are in terms of summarizing things. And I noticed that we have a couple items on the agenda today, which are recommendations to be added to one committee or another. We'll discuss those in details and make the appropriate decision when we get there. Next order of business are comments from the public. The public will be given three minutes to make brief comments, and as in the past, we'll have comments or questions from the board after all the comments have been made. I now ask our staff to call the comment cards that we do have. But before we do that, we have Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Bonita. Yes, would either of you like short comments before we start? Commissioner Wilson.
Good evening, Charter Review Committee members and public and everybody else who's here. I think it's such an important time. You all are honing in on it. If you didn't get a chance to tune in this past Tuesday, we had a marathon board meeting. I know you were here. And I think the thing I really want to bring your attention to was the two of the most contentious items. Do I have icing on my face? I have to tell you, I came from Bill Cowell's retirement party, so it's possible. Very sad to see him go, but it was good cake. I think it's really important for you all to know that two of the most contentious items, and we had dozens and dozens of residents who were willing to be here. They were here until midnight. We're talking about 12 hours. They had their children with them. They gave up days at work to be here. That were rural settlement residents. They live outside our urban service area. They are constantly on the defensive. They are constantly, even with the comprehensive plan working in their favor, even with our code currently in its state, they still had to be here and testify and beg, and it was a nail biter. And, you know, if you think that what we have right now within our comprehensive plan, Vision 2050, is going to be sufficient to protect their interests in the interests of the residents in Orange County at large, I say we ask the voters. Put it out there and make sure that they have the opportunity to weigh in. Because if you'd seen the way that this chambers and our entire county looked and felt that day, you would know we're missing something. And, you know, in one of the cases, the governing documents that we have, staff recommended a denial, and there were governing documents that supported the resident's position, and it still ended up being a very contentious and long day because it's not in our charter. And ultimately, I think it provides a completely different governing document and tool for our residents to have is a sense of security and a sense of predictability, which is important in governance. The second thing that I wanted to mention, and I know you're going to hear more about this, is I do support exploring Commissioner O'Neill's initiative to look at what some of these things cost us. We all understand that we are in the weeds on our public works projects and our infrastructure projects, and we keep going back to the voters, and we keep asking our residents to pick up the tab for new development. And maybe what we really need to do is analyze those things as they come forward. A development process and understanding what that will cost us outside of the impact fees, I think, is a very prudent way to approach any type of application. So thank you for bringing that to the attention, and I hope it's explored more. And thank you all so much for all your work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bonita, please. Bonita.
Commissioner Wilson did a great job in explaining these two issues, and I'll just definitely, I agree with her on both of them. But I do have some additional information for you on Chuck O'Neill's presentation of the financial feasibility. Back in prior to 2012 or 2011, there was a requirement for the county to be able to have financial feasibility studies of every development, that if it was expanding the urban service line or if it was going to put urban development in a rural area. And in 2012, there was maybe 7 different work sessions here at the county with the Board of County Commissioners at that time, presented by staff, on what the Community Planning Act meant from 2011 to the county. And in one of these presentations, they discussed the financial feasibility requirement that was now, due to that act, it was taken away. It was a requirement. It wasn't exactly taken away, but now it was optional for the county to do or not to do. Well, the county decided to keep it, and they called it something different, though. They called it fiscal sustainability instead of financial feasibility, because they thought it was more comprehensive, holistic way of looking at whether a development was going to, pay for itself or not. And so the presentation is being passed out, and if you look through that, you'll notice that in the presentation it says that it was the manager of planning division. Her name was Susan Coswell, and she said that development does not pay for itself. And it was really refreshing seeing this 2013 video and seeing her say that, because people aren't saying, I don't hear that very often, especially in the county. It's like, we need this, though, it's just sustenance, right? We were being told by staff that we need that development in order to help pay for the transportation system. Well, I ran the numbers and showed that that wasn't true. But, back in 2013, this staff member of the county was saying that, it does not pay for itself. Development does not pay for itself. And they actually did a study and showed that it takes 79 years for a development to even break even. So, that was incredible that the county actually had this information. And so what they ended up doing was they put amendments into the Comprehensive Plan Amendment and required the use of a fiscal sustainability analysis tool to evaluate these developments. Well, come to today, right? We had the Sustany development, and it wasn't done for this development, I guess 1611. Well, to this day, I don't know where that tool is. I don't know if anyone ever created it. I don't know what happened to it. I'm still digging and trying to find it. But as far as I've been here for 7 years, that tool has not been used. And it should have been used in the Sustany development if it wasn't. So I really think that we need this on the charter, because if staff isn't doing what the board voted on and it's in our policies, then perhaps it really needed to be stronger. It needs to be in the charter. And, the county needs to be following that, if that's what the will of the people is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now have comments from the public. I'll ask Deputy Clerk to call the cards that we have. First, how many cards do we have?
Thank you, Chair. I have 9 right now.
Okay, thank you.
And the first speaker that I have is Nelson Betancourt. Mr. Betancourt, if you'll come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Nelson Betancourt, 5350 East Scaly Street, Orlando, Florida, 32812. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Mr. Vose, while public banking Orange County would not be on the November ballot, I want you to know that I am deeply grateful for your consideration, time, dedication, and leadership on this issue. Although the Public Banking Committee did a fair job in understanding the issue before it, the legal issues that came up during the study were ones that we did not foresee and are now the ones that we will work to resolve. There's a saying, whatever gets in the way of the work is the work. And we're going to continue to do the work to bring public banking to Orange County. Come hell or high water, I will be back. So I thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the clerk to recognize members Batchelor, Shower, Prophet, and Riley as joining the board. Thank you. Next.
The next speaker is George Morning.
My name is George Morning. I reside at 4494 Real Court, Orlando, Florida, zip code 32808. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm speaking on a different subject today. I was a member, or I attended the Governmental Structure Committee and like to make a couple comments. I want to speak, first of all, about a strong mayor government that we currently have. I've had the opportunity to work under every mayor and chairman with the exception of Mayor Demings since the system was established. It's worked exceedingly well. I'd like to also point out that each of the previous mayors and chairmen were reelected and elected at an overwhelming majority, clearly demonstrating the citizens' support of this type of government. Further, I'd say that we appreciate all of our commissioners and we support the work of our commissioners. Our commissioners represent their district, their constituents within that district, as well as they support all of the government work. But it is the mayor and the chairman that represents every citizen of Orange County and allows every citizen of Orange County the opportunity to go to their top executive and address whatever issues that they have. This system of government has continued to work well in numerous other localities. I know there's some research that's been done that talked about different localities that don't have a strong mayor. There are some pros and cons to each one of those, but I think when we go across the country and we take a look at very effective governments, what we'll see is a strong executive leadership pushing those forward. I further support that in this vein, the executive staff, including the county administrator and the legal counsel, should continue to report to our mayor and our chief executive officer. Again, this person is elected by the whole populace of the Orange County, and that's what we expect and are looking forward to. When we move a little bit further, what we find out is that when we look forward and do different developments, et cetera, we go back to the history of this whole process. It was determined we needed a strong type of leadership to manage the growth and development that was happening in Orange County. That growth and development is more today than it was when we started this type of government. So I support this. I think it's extremely important. I think that this type of leadership also respects the various parts of our community. It supports small businesses. It supports the social fabric and the issues that we have. It addresses the homelessness issue. You need a centralized executive that can take a hold of these things, begin to manage these things, and push them forward. You know, in each of our departments, we have executive leadership. I think I'm out of time.
You can finish. You can finish your sentence, though, please.
Okay.
You may finish your sentence.
Okay. In our departments, we have strong executive leadership at the top. We have our directors at the top. We have our assistant directors, but we don't have our committees running our departments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reed McCoy, if you'll please come to the podium.
Reed McCoy, 1431 Bahia Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32807. Good evening, everyone. Actually, to kind of piggyback on that, I believe actually that the gentleman that spoke earlier was correct. However, I disagree that our mayor should actually serve on the county commission. We do have a strong mayor government, and I think that the strong mayor should serve as the executive, but also not serve in the legislative branch. How we can fix that is by adding additional districts. And instead of having geographic districts, we should have at-large districts. And the county commission has 6 districts right now. You can add 3 at-large seats, and those folks can be elected countywide. The mayor's county administrator could attend the meetings and answer the questions of the county commission. Moreover, it would allow for more government oversight. I would disagree that we should not have the county commission holding the mayor's administration accountable. We're a different county. Orange County is a great county. And there are several counties in the state of Florida that have at-large county commission seats. Hillsborough County, which has a similar population to us, they have 4 districts and 3 at-large. Pinellas County, Volusia County, Leon County, and Manatee County. All of those counties have at least 1 to 2 at-large commission seats. This, again, would allow for greater transparency. Our county commissioners do a great job. This is not an indictment to them, but when you look at some of the county commission meetings, the frustration that it appears is that they cannot speak directly with the mayor because of sunshine laws. And so if you have the mayor off of the county commission, because he is a strong mayor, which he should be off of the commission, they would be able to better advocate, and so would an at-large county commissioner. This would also save in redistricting, appropriations, and all apportionments, lawsuits, the legal hassle, redistricting committee, just by having at-large seats. And this should be brought to the voters, not by the county commission. The residents should vote for this, and this is why I'm bringing it to this commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Kelly Simrod.
Good evening. I'm
Good evening.
Kelly Simrod, 3111 Amalfi Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32820. Hello, committee members,
Hello.
commissioners. Hello. So I'm here tonight to speak on, well, first I want to tell you that I was one of the 150 residents that sat here until 1 a.m., Commissioner Wilson, 1 a.m. We were here advocating to try to protect the rural community east of the Econ River. That was a promise that was made by the county to keep that community rural, that we would not cross it with urban sprawl. And we constantly are here fighting for the county to honor the promise that was made to the community. So I am still in support of the rural service boundary, to protect it, as well as to include the rural settlements in that as well. I'm also here this evening to talk about item B that's on the agenda, which includes the financial analysis of a comprehensive land use plan amendment. And I want to use the case study of the Lake Pickett text amendments. When the Lake Pickett text amendment came through, it was a privately led initiative. It meant that it was developers that were sponsoring and promoting and wanting to change the zoning that was in that area. The county honored and participated and conducted studies and assessed the materials that were coming in from the developers. But what was never available to the constituents, never available to the commissioners, never available to the staff was the total number that it was going to cost taxpayers across Orange County by approving developments outside of the urban service area. That was a comprehensive land use amendment that was made. It was called the Lake Pickett text amendment. We now have the tally bill on the first part of it, the Lake Pickett South, the GROW. And we know, speaking with Commissioner Bonilla's office and from staff, we know that we're looking at about a $325 million commitment that is beyond what the developer is paying of taxpayers in Orange County. That means that everybody from Pine Hills, Baldwin Park, Union Park, Avalon Park, all over the Ocoee, they're all going to be paying for this development to be built outside of the urban service area because the infrastructure didn't exist. Had the commissioners had the information at the time when they voted, they probably would have voted differently than putting taxpayers on the hook for years and years and years for a comprehensive land use plan amendment that was private, not publicly initiated, private. I fully support the idea that we should have financial analysis conducted prior to the BCC voting on a comprehensive land use plan amendment. Thank you very much for your service and time. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lori Forrester.
Lori Forrester, 16050 Sand Hill, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. I agree 100% with what Kelly, Commissioner Wilson, and Commissioner Bonilla all said about the rural boundary and the financial analysis and viability of doing any kind of comp plan changes. You know, our elected county commissioners, we elect them for a variety of different things. Their expertise in being able to put numbers together and do a financial analysis on every department that's within Orange County that will be impacted by a change in the comp plan is not one of the reasons why they were elected, nor does it fall into their wheelhouse. So when they're up on the dais and a developer comes up to propose a change in the comp plan, they are sort of have one hand tied behind them because they don't understand and know what the true cost of a development is going to be. And as Kelly mentioned, not only is it, you know, they have a fair share, which in my opinion is not fair, but it falls back on the taxpayers of Orange County to pick up the costs and or the inconvenience and or the drama of enabling a developer to develop without having the county commissioners fully understand the impact of what that development will mean. And I also don't think that even, I have heard some of them that say, well, the cost will be this, but what this isn't necessarily the true cost of what it is actually going to cost because they don't think about maintenance. They don't think about other infrastructures. They, you know, obviously roads, but I spent 2 hours talking to the Orange County Roads team to kind of understand what their fair share and their impact fees were, and it's a fraction of what really is needed in order for that a fraction of what is really needed for road improvements for any type of development. So I just think that we as citizens of this county should not have to fight so hard when it comes to a comp plan change. And I am very supportive, 100% supportive, as some of you know, of the rural boundary. I think that is absolutely critical, and I am equally as supportive of Chuck O'Neill's comp or the viability comp plan change, whatever the item B on the agenda is, because it's way too long, the title of that. And I think it's absolutely critical for those two things. Let the voters decide. I think the voters will decide that those are going to be absolutely necessary because the voters don't know what it's going to cost them either.
Thank you.
Kathy Sheeran.
Kathy Sheeran, 2450 Williams Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here, but I'm just going to reiterate and agree with Commissioner Wilson, Lori, and Kelly. I am in full support of discussion item B, on the proposed charter review topic regarding a financial analysis of a new development or any development change. I think every citizen in Orange County would support this initiative because it would determine the true impact of a project to the community and the taxpayers. And although it's not on tonight's agenda, I'm also stating that I am in full support of the CRC's Rural Boundary Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Walsh.
My name is Michael Walsh, and I live at 16065 Sand Hill Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to participate. We truly do appreciate your efforts on behalf of the citizens of Orange County. I'm really here representing my family, neighbors in the Avalon Rural Settlement, as well as Orange County voters. If you look back on the idea that anyone who has been or is responsible for running a budget, the most basic component for any investment or capital expenditure proposal is realistically putting forth an ROI analysis before that can even be appreciated or moving forward. And it's in that regard that we support the proposal that the charter be amended to require any request for a development order or change in the comprehensive plan. And since this isn't medicine, it doesn't just flow from me, I have to read it. For comprehensive plan by a developer or their attorneys prior to a vote of the BCC be accompanied by a thorough financial analysis prepared by the Orange County Comptroller as to the true cost to the county and its citizens of said development proposal and its effect on the welfare of our county voters who also support the rural boundary. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Maria Casanova Baker.
Good evening, everybody. I'm a little bit hoarse, so I'm going to make it very short. Maria Casanova Baker, 16112 Sand Hill Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34747. I'm here in full support of the discussed item, item B, same as wonderful Commissioner Wilson and all of the other ones that came before me. I'm also wanting to be in full support of the rural boundaries, just making it short. Thank you very much for all your support to us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, this is the last speaker card that I have. Patricia Rump.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Patricia Rumpf, and my address is confidential. So I'm here. Thank you.
In Orange County, Orlando, Florida?
Yes, sir.
You know I'm just messing with you.
Yes, sir. Orlando, Florida, but my address is confidential.
Yes.
I've been watching, listening. I can't watch, but listen to the recording from each one of your meetings. So I have been following your meetings, even though I have not been in your meetings all the time. So I'm glad to hear that the public banking has been withdrawn. Because from the last video that I listened to, there was more uncertainties than there were confirmation as to how to move forward. So I'm glad to hear that that has been withdrawn. I knew this would happen as soon as I get up here, but it's going to go away. So I'm glad to hear that that's withdrawn. I have expressed my opinion before that I am not for extending the time of the Board of the Commissioners. I said again, the 8 years is enough time. I've heard the arguments about once I come on board, I don't have enough time to do what I need to do. There's a lot of variables that go into play as why there's not enough time to get what you want done. So I'm not for that. But I do believe, and I understand, having campaigned before, no one person could service over 100,000 residents. And with this population growing, it's going to grow to probably 200,000 that a county commission need to service. So I am in favor of expanding county commissioners, but not for extending their terms as far as county commissioners. If you want to offset the court cost, Commissioner Dottie, I heard the comments from the last meeting. You asked the guy what it's going to cost. We don't know what it's going to cost, but it's still going to cost if we expand county commissioners. But it's something is needed to help offset what this county commissioner's duty of coming up with 100,000 residents. I do like the idea, Chuck, that you came up, Commissioner Chuck, about a feasible cost. I believe this issue came up years ago when we approved an amendment on the ballot, the voters did. And we could not get that amendment moved forward because the cost. I can't be specific as to what the item was, but this has come up before that the voters need to know up front what it's going to cost them to get this amendment passed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Now, that concludes all the cards that we have. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to have comments who have not spoken? If you would like to speak, you may come and have your 3 minutes and then complete a card. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing part of our meeting. We'll now be open for brief comments from the board, and their questions can be to any of our previous speakers. If they have a new topic, we'll ask to agenda it further down the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
I see Mr. Batchelor.
I've got a question, and I think that Commissioner Wilson might be the best person to answer it. And on the rural settlement,
Commissioner, please.
On the rural settlement, there was a project turned down and go with a recently 32,000 square foot temple, I believe it was. Would the process and the criteria for approval been less difficult if it was a rural boundary? If it was outside the rural boundary, would it have been easier to get approval?
So are you saying that if this charter amendment were in place, would it have been a different?
No, let me take it 2 steps. Currently, under the current ordinances, it was in the rural settlement.
It was in the rural settlement, yes.
If it had been outside the rural settlement, would the criteria for approval been less stringent?
Yes.
Okay.
It could have been something zoned rural, and in something where the future land use map was potentially needing also an application for transmittal of something different for development, and that's exactly what we saw on the east side, right, where they literally had to change the future land use to get the zoning to move forward. So those things, once again, the rural settlements right now do have additional protections within the comprehensive plan, but any of those things can be circumvented under the current regulations of special exceptions if they're able to navigate, if there's an applicant savvy enough to navigate those courses. So, you know, the advantage of having something come before the voters of Orange County and going to the charter is that the threshold right now is something that doesn't, okay, let me back up. It is very appealing for individuals to come forward and want to develop in our rural settlements because the land is actually at a premium. It is sometimes a more affordable piece of land because under its current future land use designation, it shouldn't be used for that purpose. So it looks like a bargain. And they think, well, we can spend the money navigating through this approval process and, you know, put all our chips down on that in the hopes that we'll get enough votes, which they just need a simple majority, to move forward that change. So there's, without an additional governing document articulable that has a separate burden for that change, I think we're going to continue to see the erosion of the protections of our rural settlements, which, you know, I think people hear about this, you know, the wrestling match about property rights, and all I can think about is what about the property rights of the grazing, the people who have grazing land and the farmers out there and the people who relied on the idea that those would be protected in this particular land use. So, you know, I think that if you look at the utilization of the charter in order to be able to add a layer of protection and stability for them, it will benefit their value in their land, and it will benefit them, I think, in a quality of life way.
May I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Sure. Well, I want to just mention one thing. Everyone on the dais does not have a key that lets me know who would like to speak. So if I miss someone, just raise your hand. I'll call out because I can't tell who's on the queue. I see just one person, and I can tell from the nods that there's more than one person that wants to speak.
Okay.
Okay,
May I
please.
follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yes.
Follow-up question is then, on the fiscal impact, financial impact statement, then, is that something that you as a commissioner would support?
100%. I think you got here right after I finished my public comment, but part of my public comment was that I am in support of continuing to pursue a true rural boundary, and the other piece of that was to take a deeper dive into these the fiscal impact of these development plans. We know how in the weeds we are in our public works and infrastructure projects, and we're continuing. It's going to be coming up again in February, the potential to go back to the voters again to ask for additional sales tax money to pay for the unchecked growth. So understanding what the real financial impact is on a development plan is really important. Now, if it comes out that analysis shows that it's a good deal for the public, then it's a good deal for the public, and we move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I finished my remarks by saying this, and of course in agreement with the Commissioner, of course. I live in Winter Garden, so I better agree with her, right? I think the financial impact statements have become more crucial now because the legislature is basically making it so difficult for the average person, the citizen, to contest anything. In fact, the SLAPP lawsuits,
that's right,
which you're very familiar with, obviously if you engage in a SLAPP lawsuit, and now the legislature's passed a bill that basically says you pay legal costs.
That's
so
right.
that's intimidating for a person, a resident who may have testified tonight. So I think a fiscal impact note from an independent body, i.e. the government,
that's right,
lends credibility to the person who might oppose the development because the fiscal impact note being generated by the government allows the government to put into the debate
right.
the fiscal impact as opposed to a private citizen who's going to face a SLAPP lawsuit.
100% agree with that, and that burden shouldn't continue to fall on our residents. We continue to place that burden. You know, I talk to residents out in my district when something's coming through, and they are like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I know how they feel. They understand my support, and all I can say is you've got to come down, and you've got to stand here, and I'm so sorry you're going to have to take off work again, and you're going to have to get a babysitter again. And something's broken, right? If we continue to operate in a system where they've been assured that this is the future land use here, this is what this future land use is, there should be something that they can take comfort in saying, okay, look, if you're going to move forward and change that future land use, you better prove it's going to be good for all of us, that there's a public good to that, truly a good investment. Because if we're losing property value in one locale and money from all of our pockets, we need to take a look at it. And I think that, you know, anybody who's lived here for any period of time knows that we're always scrambling for the money that we're supposed to be getting from impacts from development in impact fees. Okay. Well, you know, Orange County, how many years did we go without updating our impact fees? Finally got some movement in 2021, and then we were preempted. So there was, you know, we continue to.
I want to say, Commissioners, anything else you would like to add?
I do, because I think it's really quickly about the urban service line, because I think one of the things that continues to also be a concern in areas that I don't think is contemplated, quite frankly, even so when the things that happened out in my district came forward, people rarely talk about, is that because they are outside the urban service area, many times those are going to be going on to septic. And if you're keeping an eye on also what we're trying to do across the county and state in protecting our water bodies, we're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars to pull old septic out and put in sewer lines or more advanced septic. So why wouldn't we consider that impact as part of the urban service line and the cost to add that to the cost? Because it is the cost, right? We're giving up water quality, and we understand what septic does long term.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We'll have Member De La Portilla, then Member Nguyen, then Member Staccato.
I want to stay on that point, and I want the answer to this question that was raised by Commissioner Bonilla. She said that growth doesn't pay for itself, right? And For years, growth has not been paying. What is growth supposed to pay for? Can somebody answer that question? I mean, I just don't understand the connection between that statement and what is growth supposed to pay for? She can answer my question, or Dr. Semrad, or Commissioner
You have to
Wilson.
direct it to a particular person.
Well, Commissioner Bonilla, she answered
Commissioner.
the question.
I'm trying to say you can't just direct it to anybody in the audience.
Okay.
So I'll try to attempt to answer this question since I brought it up. But the idea that we had in the state and in the county was that there was supposed to be a financial feasibility analysis of each development when it came in, showing that it had to cover the cost of itself. So let's say Sustany, right, that was coming in, it was causing all of this negative impact to the streets, to the roads. So roads had to be widened in order to, new roads had to be built also for that in order to be able to meet that impact. So Sustany had to be able to pay for that. Sustany also had to be able to pay for the school, for the fire station, for the sewage lines, the water lines. All of the costs of that development had to have been paid by that development and the taxes that are coming out of that development. And so that's, growth paying for itself. However, we got into the point where that's not what's happening. And so in 2012, when, we have the policy, we're supposed to be doing it, but we weren't doing it in the county. And so since then, with the combination of not doing those fiscal analysis, with also the impact fees being discounted at 60%, and the traffic just getting worse, and it's not getting paid for, we're at a point where and I don't remember exactly the number, but it's like over $100 billion of deficit of our transportation infrastructure here of costs. So now, the mayor is looking to do a transportation sales tax to help pay for that. And now it's being put on the taxpayers, all of us, not just tourists, even though 60% is going to look, when I go to a store, I'm going to have to pay for that. I'm a local. I'm not a tourist, right? So we're going to have to pay for all that infrastructure that should have been paid by the transportation impact fee. It should have been at 100%. And because they approved developments without doing that fiscal analysis, and they didn't know what it was going to cost. So that's where, it's not paying for itself. Did that answer the question?
Can I follow up,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman?
Yes,
Can I follow up? So you're looking for the development project to cover all the infrastructure costs that development that will be needed for the development project, right? So there won't be any deficits. So that's where you're saying development doesn't pay for itself because the infrastructure is not covered. But shouldn't the county adjust their costs to their development fees and their impact fees or wastewater capital charges to ensure that a specific development, especially a large one on a comprehensive land use plan, would cover for itself? Because there continues to be development. Our budget continues to increase. I think the county's budget is now over $6 billion. We've had at least 5 consecutive decades of growth. People still come here. So my concern is that if we create policies that will restrict development, we're only going to increase the cost of housing. We're going to limit people's ability to move, especially young people that are needed in this economy that can't afford to live here. So restrictions have a cost. So if we're going to do a financial analysis of the cost of development, we should also do a financial analysis of the cost of not doing the development and what's the impact going to be on future budgets and all that. But we can continue the discussion when Member O'Neill brings it up.
Thank you.
That's where my thoughts are right now.
Okay, but so a lot of these costs from developments are paid by developments, but there are some costs that are not, in particular the transportation. And so if you watch the video of when that discussion happened, Mayor Jacobs made a great point, and I agree with her, that if you were there first, like you had your land, you already have concurrency, right, in the system. But then someone new comes along, and then they develop before you do, but you already had your concurrency, your trips, let's say. Now they took up all the trips that you would have had, and now you have no more trips, and now it's not fair for that person not to be able to develop. So the way it should be done is that we already have all these, so you already have your comprehensive land use plan, right? And so all the infrastructure is already set for what that plan is. So our Vision 2050 is taking that into consideration. Like, this is what we have now, and this is what we need in order to fit the population that we're going to get. But when they ask for that increase in density, that's when it triggers the financial feasibility analysis. That's when you see, well, are there enough trips for you when we already gave all these trips to everybody else? And so if there's trips, then yes. If there's not, then it's going to be typically in the rural area where we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the road systems. So it'll be pushing the development into the urban service area where we do have those services, where we do have that infrastructure, and where they're able to, it's not only about cars on the road, but you're going to looking at multi-mobility. So you're looking at, is there mass transit that can take off some of these trips off the road? Is it walkable? So now we have more walkable communities. So it's going to benefit the community overall in our pockets.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
I have something to ask.
Commissioner Bonilla, was there anything further you'd like to add? Thank you. Member Nguyen, and then Member Staccato.
Commissioner Bonilla. I was trying to get
Yes.
your attention, sorry.
I'm going to ask, because I'm trying to be fair with kind of letting people go and not, if staff can kind of run the clock but don't set the buzzer. Is that
For what?
possible?
For what?
And that way I can tell whether I'm being,
I'll let it only be.
yes. You see what I'm trying to do?
No.
Yeah. Yes. I
You
do.
can, I'll try to be as brief as possible.
Commissioner Bonilla, thanks for sharing the information you gave us tonight. My one question is, did you bring this to your county commissioners and to the mayor as your concerns about what you've distributed to us tonight?
I found all this out in the midnight hour.
No,
Like,
did you-
literally, before Sustany happened, and he did bring it up during the case. And I was like, staff's supposed to know this stuff.
No, I'm just asking a question. If, in fact, all the information you've gathered is great, but did you share it with your commissioners through their staff or however you do it? And did you share it with the mayor, your concerns that you're bringing to us to change things?
So I have been asking questions of staff, and they don't know that this even exists.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've been looking for the tool that's supposed to exist, and I'm hitting dead ends.
Okay. And secondly, you said that the impact fees, trips, some of them, some people more or less hoard them, and other people have to pay. And when you're bringing a project...
That's not what I said.
Well, let me just finish. When I bring a project to Orange County, impact fees, transportation are enormous, and they don't give me any breaks. I just brought one in not too long ago. So you're saying impact fees or transportation fees or whatever fees don't pay for itself and the roads. There are some roads, yes, that need widening or whatever to accommodate whatever's being built. The transportation fees cover that more times than I think it should. So you're saying the development I'm bringing in, if it's more than what I just gave the people over $1 million for a project.
I think Commissioner Nguyen, they're looking for a question.
There's two types of...
Excuse me, Commissioner.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the specific question.
I want to ask her, she's saying that development monies brought in does not pay for what you're building.
Yes, well, my
Correct.
question is, what is the question you're asking?
What development that you know right now, today, that did not pay for itself, you think?
Everything since 2012.
Okay.
But there's two different types of transportation. There's transportation impact fees, and then there's proportionate share.
I understand that.
And so when you're having an area that doesn't have the concurrency, that's when the prop share comes in order to help pay to widen that road, because you don't have concurrency at that moment in order to be able to not make the road fail. So.
I understand that. That's prop share, all of this, but I just don't understand why you say everything since 2012 have not paid for itself.
Because it hasn't. If you look at what our infrastructure deficit was back then and what it is now, it just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. And we don't have the money to pay for it because we discounted impact fees and we didn't look at what the actual costs were going to be in order to make sure that there was concurrency. And a couple of other things were done too, but I'm like almost out of time. But, you know, the concurrency also was affected at that time, which I think the fiscal feasibility analysis would help take care of that. But the concurrency wasn't concurrency as it should have been anymore after 2013.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Staccato.
Again, I want to ask Mr. McCoy.
Thank you. Commissioner Wynn is still up.
Mr. McCoy. I just wanted to understand what you were saying. You said it should be 3 at-large districts. Are you talking about the 6 plus an additional 3?
Yes, ma'am. If you keep the mayor, if you take the mayor off, if you keep him on, then you can do 2. Because I don't think they're going to want to do districts because they'll have to do the reapportionments. I think that may be more drawn out, and I don't think that could pass. But I think saving the money, you can do at-large seats.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Staccato.
I just want to say that House Bill 337, Commissioner O'Neill pointed out, which is a preemption on how we do impact fees, is actually making it much tougher for us as a county to actually get a true cost accountant out of these developments, to the point where we probably shouldn't be entertaining any expansion because we're guaranteed to lose money on every single development.
Mr. Staccato, do you mind if I ask if you'll ask a question or we can save it for discussion on this topic?
Okay. I'll bring it back to O'Neill when I...
Okay, is that okay? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make the point.
Mr. Chairman?
Member Callan and then Member Shower, Vice Chair.
Okay. I think the discussion on the rural settlement...
And then Ms. Weinsberg.
Comments on the rural settlement I think are real important. I've noticed in that Vision 2050 plan that circulated, there was like 40 pages dealing just with rural settlement. It looked like the IRS tax code. It read like it. Then you understand what a rural settlement is under the Orange County Code. It's an oxymoron. It's not rural. It allows suburban land uses up to 4 units per acre in a rural area. It's not rural. And so there's some things I think we don't think about. So I do think that's a discussion to be had with regard to that, but it's something that I think could be addressed by that amendment that you all been talking about in the Sustainability Committee. That's it.
Thank you. Member Shower, and I'm going to ask the board, at this stage of the meeting, we're actually into question and answers, not discussions. So,
Well, I just have a few comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shower, Vice Chair, do you?
On?
No, he's the Vice Chair. He gets to.
Is this on?
To go. Yes, sir. The mic to the left.
Oh. You hear me all right? It's coming through? I think we've had, I think the staff has done a great job in promoting the developers paying their fair share. There's a impact committee that looked over this, and there are consultants that are hired to look at the situation and put a number on it as far as its impact. I don't see where there's a need for this. It's just another layer of bureaucracy that people have to fight their way through to provide housing and affordable housing for the community. What it looks like to me is you want to jam everything in the urban area, and we end up at some point in time like New York City, people living on top of each other. That's taken away the rights of people who want to live in a rural area or a normal subdivision. We had the same situation back when Horizons West was burned out Orange Grove, some, 30 or 40,000 acres of land, and the county hired Sullen, who was our county planner at the time, to develop a master plan for this community. I think that's what's necessary on the east side. For that the expansion that's going on the east side needs to be properly planned with roads and sewer and water. And we did all those things, and those infrastructures were put on the developer, or they couldn't develop the land. and I know you're shaking your head. but you
Member
weren't here.
Shower,
I'm just saying that.
do you mind if we save the comments until we discuss the item and item number D?
Okay.
Is it D or B? It's not that we may or may not support those, but I'm just saying that we're going to do it twice.
Just, to hear all this, and there's no proof being put forth for this board to,
Yes, sir.
consider. It's got to be, you can say anything you want, but you got to provide some,
Yes.
professional advice in terms of what's happening out there.
Thank you. Any other questions to any of the speakers that made comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which are the committee reports. I show one, but and the chair's comment, I made a comment to all the committees to not be in a rush, but to start wrapping stuff up. Let's get us to the finish line. The deliberation time is quickly coming to an end. So we have a report from our Sustainable Growth Committee, Member Grimmer, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we last met as a full CRC on January 16th, I was very excited about the opportunity that we were going to have the following day at our next committee meeting, which was January 17th, where we might vote on the rural boundary issue and bring something back to this full CRC. And just for brief review there, what we're studying on the rural boundary issue is adopting rural boundaries in Orange County based on the urban service area lines in the current Orange County Comprehensive Plan, using those lines to establish rural boundaries, and that would for two reasons. If those rural boundaries would be established, any proposal to increase intensity or density of property outside the rural boundary would require an 80% vote of the county commission. And also, the rural boundary would establish that for land outside the rural boundary, the Orange County's comprehensive land use plan rules will always apply, meaning if a property were then annexed from unincorporated Orange County into a municipality, the Orange County land use rules would still apply. So that's what we're looking at right now. We had a proposal that we considered on our January 17th meeting, also a first draft of the report on the issue. I was hoping we would get to a vote on it, but we had some more discussion about the proposal itself and the language that Attorney Vos had prepared in terms of the proposal. So we had a long discussion there, and so we did not get a chance to take a vote on that January 17th meeting, but we are meeting again tomorrow morning, and I'm hoping that tomorrow is the day, if Tom will let us get to a vote tomorrow morning. When we reconvene, we may have taken some action, so we'll see how that goes.
And what time is your meeting tomorrow?
It is 9 a.m.
9 a.m., right?
And of course, always open to the public. We're on the 4th floor here in the County Administration Building. So,
thank you. That does not require any action from the board. We thank you for the report.
Thank you, Chair.
We are now going to move into our discussion items. If the discussion items get very long, then we'll take a break, but we'll see how this goes. I still show two people up, and I think everyone has spoke. I see Member Grimmer, Member Weinsberg. Did I miss anyone? Everybody's good? Okay, we'll go into our discussion items. Our first discussion item is one by Member Callen. He's going to discuss the expansion of the Governmental Structures Committee to have a discussion on the county administrator. We'll now hear comments from Member Callen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate your service to our committee.
Thank you.
And the way you handle these meetings. Truly do.
Thank you.
This is a concern that I have, and it's seen from talking to other commissioners, past and present. The county commission is the legislative body that approves zoning and comprehensive plan changes. They also approve preliminary subdivision plans. They also approve all contracts with the county. They determine whether to buy or sell county land, whether to eminent domain county land. They engage in procurement, approving procurement contracts for supplies for the county. They adopt the budget every year, funding other agencies, contributing money to other agencies and other organizations. And they determine and deal with lakes, wetlands, and environmental issues, as well as parks and recreation. And so these commissioners need to have or the ability to access information from staff to deal with all the functions they deal with. And some staff members have told commissioners right to their face, well, we report to the mayor, not you. To have a $6 billion company with a board of directors who has no staff who feels they report to the commissioners is not correct. If you look across the state of Florida, in the regional area here, you have the county commission, the county administrator, and the county attorney report to the board, serve at the pleasure of the board. And there's a chairman of the board who runs the board, and there's also commissioners. So it takes a very deft county administrator or county attorney to keep 5 people happy. And that is a good tension to have there. So you're not taking away from the attorney or the administrator also having to report to and serve at the pleasure of the board. And so the transportation sales tax back last year was a clear example of the county staff falling on their feet and not doing their job correctly. Dumping a 1,200-page report to the county commissioners 10 days before the vote, never cultivating what the county commissioners wanted the transportation sales tax, never explained the detail, fighting all the amendments that they were being suggested along the way. If you had a county administrator who was held to serve at the pleasure of the board and provide those services to the board on an important $640 million a year tax, instead of treating them like mushrooms, provide them support to meet their legislative function. Now, there's still an executive function they can't intrude upon. Okay? There still is a majority of the vote. A capable and able county attorney and county manager will frequently tell commissioners and get to know them, say, listen, that's a politics between you guys, the board. I can just provide you information. I can't take sides. You all decide that. That's an uncomfortable conversation to have once in a while, but it's a conversation that happens frequently across the state. So because what's happened with the charter and the amendment that was made, I still believe in a strong mayor form of government. I think we should keep that. I think having an elected person countywide as mayor is important. That tells that citizens telling the county we want a direction for our government. But at the same token, in the legislative arena done by the county commissioners, they should have staff support, and staff should be held to account to them. And so my proposal would be to have this go to the Government Structure Committee to air this out some more, and just insert a couple words that the county administrator serves at the pleasure of the board and the chairman, or at the mayor, pleasure of the board and mayor. And so that's what I want to get at, and that's what I'm asking the board to do, to send this to the Government Structure Committee. Of course, the administrator would have to be approved by the mayor and the board, and the administrator could be terminated by a no confidence vote of the mayor or the board.
I just have a question on that. This is a question of staff, and we may not have the answer now. We have a county administrator now. That county administrator is appointed by the mayor and voted on by the board. Is that the current structure?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, now, and the ancillary to that is the mayor has to get approval from the board to hire the county administrator, but can he fire the county administrator without a vote from the board?
Yes, he can.
Okay, so that's the structure we have now. I've had the pleasure of serving as a county commissioner, and I've had also the pleasure of talking with administrators who did not respond adequately. We always use the 4 versus 3 rule. 4 votes beat 3. And we were never afraid to say we don't like this kind of administrator, we want him fired. Now, as a commissioner, you literally can't fire anyone. Only the chairman can fire one, but the board gets to vote on the appointment. So I don't know, the mayor. So if that system is broken, the question is, how do we fix that system? So if you're going to carry this to committee, the question is that system broken? And when an administrator didn't speak to us as a commissioner, Member Shower has served on there also, we had pretty good remedies for that. And once that staff knows that commissioners are not going to take any BS, it really kind of worked for us. Now, something could be broken now. I'm not saying something is not broken now, but historically, that's how it has worked. And between the two of us, we've got about 30 years behind us.
Maybe a couple of years in my case. You got the other 20 years.
So I think so if it's going to go to committee, I'm just suggesting that we clearly identify what is broken with that system and then have a remedy when it comes back to our board. So this is broken and this is what we want to fix.
And it's not intended to come up with some exotic, complex thing. It's try to do something that's least amount of change possible. Mm-hmm. And if it addresses a perceived issue, and that's what we look at.
And I will also add to that I've also had county legal staff come up and says, Commissioner Hurley, you can't do that. But by the time they've said that, we've already gotten it on the commission floor. So I'm just saying we want to know what's broken and how we fix it, rather than just churning out wheels because maybe something didn't work for one individual case. We have Member Ricardo.
I do support what Commissioner Callahan is speaking about, because we talked about this, and it came up early in the discussion in the government committee. Back in '88, when we had an election which created a super strong mayor system that we have today, it was never identified to us as a community that they were going to delete a whole section in our charter, which was 403. Mm-hmm. And that's how this got all generated, was that language was eliminated, and we're trying to fix it now. And personally, I hope we can reestablish something in Chapter 403 to reflect that, to give a definition of what the power structure is. And I think that's what Tom is trying to do here, and I do support it. So.
Thank you, Vice Chair Shara, and then Member Wynn.
Yeah, I just got a short comment. I agree with everything that Tom said, that we need to look at this pretty closely, because the county is getting bigger, and the commission and the citizens are relying more and more on the county commissioners to solve their, for lack of a better word, their potholes in their community. When I served on the board of county commissioners, we elected within ourselves the chairman, and he served at the pleasure of the board. And I got also one other item that I got approved by the board was that every year the major department heads were required to get an approval by the board to serve.
That's still...
So it's a one-year term. And that kind of put a lot of pressure on the department heads to respond to the commissioners, because they needed a majority vote to stay in power for the next year. So that was one of the things you might want to look at, and make sure that that's still in the documents that we operate on. But I'm for a strong mayor personally, because the buck's got to stop somewhere, and there should be an opportunity for the commissioners to talk to staff and department heads, and maybe you can structure something there to get some response from time to time on their issues. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. I want to say, are political appointee administrators still approved? I know the political appointees are not approved every year, but county administrators have to be approved every year by the board. Is that currently still the rule?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. With regard to the county administrator itself, it's not jumping out in the charter that it's clear. With respect to department heads, heads of county departments, divisions, and other agencies under the jurisdiction of the board, the appointments are annually and subject to confirmation of the board.
But the county administrator is or is not?
I'm not aware that it is, because it does not say so in the charter.
So I'm not sure if this will pass and go to committees, but I think if it does, then that's something that should be evaluated.
I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. It's just a real simple search.
Member Rishi?
Chair, I'll just...
Member Wynn. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Member Wynn and then Member Rishi.
Okay. I just want to say I agree with the chair, vice chair, and Mr. Callan. Also, we have to remember the citizens of Orange County voted unanimously for the mayor several times. And we cannot compare Orange County with Miami-Dade or anybody else, because the citizens in Miami-Dade voted for who they wanted and how they wanted their government run. Orange County has voted how they want their government run and who they want to run it. And I don't think we should
go in and dismantle what is working. If your car breaks down, you fix it. If it ain't broken, don't bother. So that's my philosophy.
Mr. Chairman,
Member,
can I address?
I think we have member,
I'm fine.
okay, please, and then member Bagley.
I just want to make a statement that in reading the charter, I have it right here, Section 301, the executive branch's Article 3, Section 301, which is the first paragraph, the first section deals with the county administration, and it mentions the county administrator. Section 302 references the county mayor. So this is what went to the voters in 1986, which was approved. This was the form of government. If we're going to preserve the form of government that we have today, and keeping the mayor on the Board of County Commissioners as a voting member of the Board of County Commissioners, then the county administration, therefore, potentially should also be preserved in the same fashion. However, if there's discussion at our next committee meeting, and it is the will of the commissioners to move the mayor off the Board of County Commissioners, then we look at Section 301. That's my thought. What Member Staccardo referenced, the change was Section 402 that dealt with the county attorney. The county attorney was originally in the charter in 1986, and then it was removed later without going to the voters. So,
okay, thank you. Member Baggins?
Thank you so much, Chair. I was actually just going to move that we move this to the Government Structure Committee. I think it seems to be the appropriate place to discuss this.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Member Nguyen.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the motion.
Sorry, I was just moving that this issue be moved to the Government Structure Committee.
Okay.
For further
Okay,
deliberation.
we have a motion and a second. Is any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? So moved. The next item is item B, which is a proposed charter review topic, financial analysis related to request for development order or change to the comprehensive plan. And there was one member of the public that said that was long. You were correct. That is brought by Member O'Neill, and we'll ask Member O'Neill if he'll start the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask staff if you can pull up the website. Is it pulled up?
Orange TV is going to help us with that.
Okay, great. This was the website that was sent out with your packet.
Here it is, right in front of us.
This company does an overall assessment for municipalities, counties, cities as to what is the actual cost of development and what development, I think Mr. Walsh used the term ROI. Which developments produce a positive ROI for the county and which ones produce a negative ROI? So they did this. There are three examples here. One of them is Lafayette, Louisiana. If you could click on that one. And then scroll down to the graphic. Okay, here we go, right there. So this was done in 2015. The yearly total capital revenue, $55 million for transportation from development. And then if you look at the red box, that's the accumulated road cost, negative $990 million. So they're taking in $55 million and paying out, close to $1 billion. Now, any financial organization, and I believe this was said previously, in order to make good financial decisions, needs to know what the long-term cost of any purchase is. Whether you're buying a truck or a piece of equipment or a piece of land. And in the case of a county, our legislative branch, before they approve new development, they should know what the true cost, long-term, of that development is. Now, in your packets, you'll see a study done by Thousand Friends of Florida that talks about a particular problem in our state, which was the passage in 2021 of House Bill 337. And what 337 did was it limits the amount of impact fees that can be charged. And it also makes specific things that can't be included in the calculation of impact fees. Now, one of those things in 337, it said you cannot include in the calculation of infrastructure cost the cost for repair and maintenance of roads. Well, I would think that would be a good thing, that you would want to know. You would want to know what it's going to cost. If you're building a road out to a cow pasture in the middle of nowhere, you should know what it's going to cost you to repair and maintain that road. But this preemption, this House bill says, no, you can't include that in the cost. So at the last meeting, we were talking about full disclosure, and I think there was a unanimous consent here that the voters should have full disclosure of any charter amendment, what the cost is going to be. If we're applying that same thinking here, our county commissioners, two of which are in the audience, have already said we really need some, as Commissioner Bonilla said, a fiscal sustainability analysis tool. This is badly needed. Our county has been flying blind. We don't know what the long-term cost of these developments is. We just don't know. It's hidden. They're voting on these things without that knowledge. They're making executive decisions without that knowledge. And all we're proposing here, sum total, is that we move this idea to require a study of each development's true cost by the county comptroller's office, and that be presented to the county commission before they vote on either a change in future land use that's going to take something from a cow pasture to a suburban sprawl, or a development order. I think it's a fully reasonable request. I understand that if I had written out a check for $1 million, I would also possibly object to this. But this is a matter for long-term planning for this county. We have this sales tax to come up with money to pay for transportation. Why is it that we have to come up with money for transportation when apparently we have a $22 billion deficit for roads? We need more roads. Well, why didn't we collect for these roads? Why didn't we collect for them when this came in? Well, there was not this study, there was not this tool, there was not this knowledge, plus there was a cap put on since 2021 from this House bill. So all this is a very simple proposal, is to move this idea to one of our committees. And that ends my presentation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Just one question of staff. Does the county commission get any report of the cost of any projects now?
I'm unaware of the precise date that the Board of County Commissioners has given on
In
the
other words,
project for
if
fiscal
a
analysis.
particular developer comes to the county and says, we're going to build a subdivision or a house, what type of economic report is given to the board now?
I don't know off the top of my head, Chairman.
Okay.
Be glad to look into it.
Okay,
if it's sent to
No,
committee.
no.
The commissioners may have some thought to it.
Well, no, let's reserve that for a report back to the board from legal staff. I want to say, well, I'm just going to leave it at that, but I don't believe that the county is flying blindly with every development, but I don't know exactly what the procedure is either. Now, I can see some merit in what's being suggested, but I think that in a committee we need a lot more information in order to.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to form a committee.
Yeah, we need a lot.
And get more information. And I just want to add this on the end to tag onto the presentation. I'm not anti-growth at all. I'm just saying when we choose what growth, what land use is going to be ascribed to what particular land, let's go into it eyes wide open. There are, if you read some of these studies, if you're talking about redevelopment, absolutely, it's a net positive. We should be doing more net positive things. When you talk about infill development, we should be doing more of that. That's a net positive. The road's already there. The water line's already there. The sewer line's already there. These are things, so how should we grow, right? Not to coin a term that was been around for quite a while, but how should we grow? We should grow with full knowledge of future consequences.
Okay, just going to make one other comment. So I'm not sure whether this will go to committee or not, but if it does, we really need to know what is currently happening. I think the comments we've had so far has been how do we handle growth outside of the urban service boundary. So that may be different from what we're doing in urban areas, I'm sure. But the other concern that I have about this is that we have a governor who has just been removed from his role as a candidate for president of the United States. He's probably a little bit already ticked off. And they were in a preemptive mode before. And so I just want us to be a little bit cautious as to whether we're putting ourselves in a position to be preempted. And it's going to take a surgical knife to get this done, not just a big picture. I don't know if I'm making sense. But if it's a big picture item, I think we're setting ourselves up for a political battle that's probably not good for the county. And my emphasis on that is not that one particular preemption would affect Orange County, but the state has the ability to preempt the whole charter process of counties. And that's really what my caution is. So I'm just saying if this goes to committee, I'm not sure whether it will or not. I'm neither for nor against. But if it does, it has to be a really, really sharp knife to make this thing work, really sharp.
You'll notice, Mr. Chair, that I brought this up at the tail end of the things that, okay, the legislature, the hanky drops March 8th.
Yes.
So I believe that this committee report.
Let's wait and see what the other board members have to say, but I just think that we have to be really surgical at something like this. We have 4 people up, and there may be more because I can't see everyone. I can't see Member Patel, so I'll call him last. Let's go with Member Vice Chair Shara, and then Grammer, and then Mr. Callen. I don't see him.
When I got elected to the Board of County Commissioners, we didn't have impact fees at all. It came out of the general fund. And then eventually somebody said, hey, let's get impact fees. Other communities are doing it. And we passed impact fees for sewer and water, paving and drainage. And I always ask the question, where did that money go that was allocated in our general fund for those items for the last 50 years? They moved those funds over to another portion of the budget, which they wanted to spend the money for. Now, what happened then was we started developing a deficiency in the system that we have, the total system of transportation in our community, sewer, water, paving, and drainage. Well, the impact on sewer and water is negligible because they operate on an enterprise fund where they can finance things and change and actually charge for the cost of sewer, water, paving, drainage. Okay? The road system, though, is a county function, and they, in turn, we're taking it out of the general fund, and it was part of the tax base of the county. Now, they also, if you're looking at doing something, if you buy a home, and not many people buy a home and pay cash for it, and you were talking about, paying your fair share. Well, the way you would do that for major projects is you'd finance them. That's what we did at the airport when I was the Aviation Authority. We financed the program, for expanding the airport for 20-year bonds. And if the county wants to catch up with the deficiencies that were generated by people that came here in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and up to the present day, they're the ones, if we didn't have those people here today, we wouldn't have the problem. Because I think the development pretty much pays for its own, and it's been, the developer has been beaten up pretty bad. So now the homes are $450,000, it used to be $225,000. You're just adding costs to the home builder, the homeowner, to pay for everybody else's problems they've had in the past 30 years. The roads need to be widened and what have you. Sure. I understand trips and I understand all, the program that goes along with it. But I can tell you now, you start putting your fingers on the development in this community and putting everybody into the urban line, you're really social engineering the community. You're not allowing people to have a subdivision. They got to go into an apartment or a townhome or something of that nature in order to get something at a certain price. So, I just, I don't think people understand the whole process. There's deficiencies in the system that have been here for years. And widening roads and what have you, bring all those people and put them in the urban line, you're going to have to widen those roads. Where are those people going to drive? I mean, I think Horizons West was a perfect example of making the developers find a way to improve the roads for what they were going to do. And I would study that program, right.
Okay.
Well, you're going to, look.
Excuse me, Commissioner.
No.
Okay, our next member, Dilla Patilla.
Member O'Neill, thank you for bringing this up.
I don't believe the commissioner is the one that yelled out. No, Commissioner Wilson, please don't leave.
Out of order.
Please. Did I say thank you for coming?
Thank you. No, I appreciate
We appreciate it. Thank you. At least you gave us a chuckle for the afternoon. Thank you.
Member O'Neill, can I continue?
Member
Yes.
Dilla Patilla.
Member De La Portilla.
Is this something that belongs in the charter, or should this be a policy decision that's made by the Board of County Commissioners?
I'm glad you asked that question, Mr. Chair. This belongs in the charter. This, above anything else that the CRC has considered, belongs in the charter because it has to be in a place that it cannot be manipulated or changed from year to year, depending on the composition of whether it's the mayor's office or the commission. To say there needs to be full disclosure on each development order that comes before or each land use change, the comprehensive land use blanket, regardless of who's there, regardless of who the mayor is, regardless of when, this is exactly where this needs to be.
But I stated my concerns earlier about potentially creating more obstacles for our county government to function. I also think that there's probably not enough time to take it up now, and here's why. I think that the analysis that is needed has to be very thorough. You need an economist to look at all the factors that input. It's not just cost of utilities. There's benefits. Our county, the point that I made earlier, our county budget has grown every single year for the last 50 years or so. People move in, and there's economic benefit when people move in. There's employment. There's consumption that occurs. You need to put all that data together. So maybe while there might not be, the roads may not be paid, but you're creating employment, you're creating demand, you're creating new businesses, you're creating population growth. Walt Disney and his brother bought land here in 1965. They assembled land over a period of years. They chose Central Florida, and they built a theme park business here that's, it's the largest entertainment company in the history of mankind. Okay, we have grown. They could have built that park in Ocala. And what would, what will the population of Orange County be if that park would have been built in Ocala? What I'm trying to say is you're making some very good points. First of all, I think it's a policy decision that should be made by the Board of County Commissioners. If the fees are not sufficient to cover the cost of the infrastructure, perhaps they have to look at the cost of the fees. And if the overall development is not covering the cost to serve that community, the county commission could also look at adjusting the millage rate. They haven't raised taxes here since the 1990s. I'm not advocating for a tax increase because we haven't needed a tax increase because of the growth. But in other counties where haven't experienced that same level of growth, they've had to raise the millage rate to provide the services, police, fire, and other services. So I think that your idea has merit. However, first of all, I think it's a policy decision made by the board. I don't think it's a charter issue. And number two, I just don't think if we have to finish our work by June 20th or so, I don't think there's enough time because you need the right data. I don't think none of us are qualified to make economic decisions based on all the factors that are needed. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, let's go down I'll make sure we come back. Member Grimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then I have Member Nguyen, and then I guess it's Member Weinsberg. And then I don't have you up there. Then Staccato, and then of course
Callan is here. Callan's down.
Callan is there, and then we'll come back to the motion to the maker. You can always speak. It's your issue. I didn't say Member Batchelor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I on?
Okay. For the sake of the public, you always have someone that you don't want to give a button, so we didn't give Member Batchelor a button.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I start my comments on the proposal, with regard to Urban 3, which is a great organization, they actually did the same level analysis in Oviedo, actually, and I think it was 2021. So that's something we'll hit a little closer to home. It might be interested in taking a look at. But great organization there. In terms of the proposal, I like the spirit of it. As the chairman of the Sustainable Growth Committee, I've been a champion for the rural boundary concept. When I'm not on the CRC, I am a housing and transportation advocate who comes before the Board of County Commissioners advocating for smart growth, for infill development, for enhanced transportation options. I'm a resident of East Orange County. I've stood many times with the people of East Orange County and to advocate against, suburban sprawl. So suburban sprawl was a huge problem for all the detrimental financial and environmental impacts that it causes, and I think it's something that needs to be taken a look at. But on this proposal, I'm concerned about its overbreadth because we are a growing, thriving metropolitan county. And every 2 weeks, the Board of County Commissioners meets and dedicates the entire afternoon session to a long list of development orders and comp plan amendments. So I'm concerned about, looking at the proposal, I'm concerned about the capacity of the Orange County government and the Comptroller's office to execute it as currently proposed. Because we're talking about giving this responsibility to the Comptroller's office. And do they have the ability to conduct that kind of investigation necessary on development projects every 2 weeks? And this, under the proposal, it will require interfacing with a number of county departments. You're talking about roads, you're talking about water supply, wastewater management, schools, fire department, law enforcement. That's a lot of people they got to talk to and get information from. Does the Orange County staff and OCPS, the sheriff's office, do they have the ability to provide all this information for every single development order or comp plan amendment proposal that comes before the Board of County Commission? I'm very concerned about that. I share Angel's concerns about, I don't want to, as much as I do not like suburban sprawl and I want it to stop, I don't want to slam the brakes on the growth of Orange County and make it more difficult for this county to function and do its work. So those are my concerns as currently proposed. I would be more interested in it if we were to limit it, not to every development order or comp plan amendment request. Talking about the rural boundary, if we were to say for any proposal that would address things outside the reserve, if we construct those rural boundaries, outside those rural boundaries, that level of financial analysis, limiting to the kind of destructive suburban sprawl that I think you're trying to get at, and that I agree with you on that. So I think maybe limiting it, and could be helpful for me in terms of my level of support. But I also echo Angel's concerns about the timing of the proposal, and I believe the level of investigation that would be required for both a committee and then this board to make a fully informed determination on a proposal of this size. I think it's very complex, so I have those concerns that I share with Angel also.
Thank you. We have three members. I'm going to call them in this order. Member Nguyen, Member Batchelor, Member Weinsberg, and then Staccato, and then, of course, the maker.
Thank you, Chair. For once, I agree with Commissioner down at the end over there. Structure.
Me?
Yes, Deportel. Yes, I agree with what he's saying.
Very hard to earn your
Don't let anyone say we don't have fun up here. Huh?
I agree with what he's saying. It's just too much for us to try and accomplish, and it's difficult anyway. You cannot specifically put on a document, this is how much it's going to cost for this development. Firstly, you don't know what can interfere. We didn't know about the pandemic. We didn't know about a number of things that could happen to not be truthful. You're saying you want someone to give you dollars and cents and how much it's going to cost. I don't think that is accomplishable. You cannot accomplish that the way you want it. Plus, it's going to tie up a lot of people, a lot of time, and more money, and we don't have time for that right now. And it's just too complicated to do.
Thank you. Member Batchelor.
Just an observation, in this conversation, we've heard the term, there's been a lot of conflation. We've heard the term physical analysis. We've heard the term fiscal impact. We've heard the term fiscal feasibility.
Correct.
We've heard the term fiscal sustainability. And they're conflated. I mean, it's hard to do this. It's hard to focus. Now, admittedly, if I were going to bring a big project to Orange County government, I'm going to hire, well, we used to hire Dr. Hank Fishkind, right? And I'm going to have a fiscal impact note on how good my project is. Maybe the county is not as equipped, or maybe it is as equipped to retort that and basically push back against that without having a fiscal note. But what I'm saying here, I think I agree with a number of people who have spoken. This is a big charge. This is I know you're supposed to say success is biting off more than you can chew and chewing it, but I don't think we have enough time to chew this one. Because for that very reason, when you start conflating, you want a fiscal impact note, you want a feasibility, you want a sustainability, you want a viability, what kind of fiscal note are you looking for? So I think it's very, very complicated and convoluted right now. But the last thing I will say is this, and I said this last meeting, I'm a big believer in fiscal impact notes. I think it would be a dereliction of duty for a county commissioner to make a decision on an impact without having some analysis, some understanding of it. But when it's this precise, with an attempt to be precise, we are not. We're conflating terms, and I don't know which one we're looking for.
Thank you. Member Weinsberg.
I agree with everything that Angel and Tom and my friend Dottie have said.
And me.
And Dick Batchelor, I always agree with him.
Thank you.
Just to say that, first of all, my fear of putting things in the charter, we are then married to them forever. And as we know, economic trends, development trends, influx, flow, varies from time to time based on economic disasters and other things. And when you're married to this kind of a type of a restrictive, as you said, going through all the mantras, you're really limiting what your future can be. And that is my word here. If we're I would love to take this on and research it. Sounds like a great topic, and it would be something really interesting. But we also need to look at the metropolitan areas in the nation that right now are dissolving, who used to be the fastest growing, and why. And did they put these kinds of restrictions on and add to their impact in all of the things, the return on investment? And is that why now, on top of all the other political ramifications, they now are not growing anymore with the developers? You know, we would want that. We would want that study included. So time-wise, reality-wise, the scope of this type of a thing, I just don't think this committee and commission can take it on at this time, and I'm against it.
Thank you, Member Staccato.
Okay, interesting observation. Economy is based on development. I differ with that because the economy is based on businesses producing items and things, and people buy homes potentially if they have enough money. So the place that you're speaking about had changing the economies that gutted their industrial complexes, and that's part of the reason why many of the northern cities that people are thinking of decrease. Government is a business. Surprised or not, it's a business. And in business, I would be surprised that they don't do economic studies on objectives they have as a business. If they don't, they're not going to be in business. Now, this business and government, we just can muddle along with taxation and try to play the game of we're not going to deal with the infrastructure for a couple of decades, and hopefully I won't be sitting here when it really hits the wall. And that's what happens a lot. We're lucky in this community that most of the infrastructure is pretty new, so we don't have to worry about it yet. But we have built thousands of miles of pipeline that will need work someday. A commissioner who sat here back in 1998 when I was fighting against a pipeline, he said one thing I did agree with him. A pipeline costs per dollar per foot the same no matter where it sits. So to Eric's point is a pipeline in a city where you're serving many people is much more effective than a pipeline going out to the suburban sprawl areas. The point is we're currently, as a commission and as a county, doing things in the blind. We just had a massive $1 billion decision, TDT, that was done in this room. Those people had no data. I listened to the whole thing. The opposition had lots of glorious ideals, but the commissioners themselves had no data. And that's been one of my problems for decades, that people are going forward with no data. And I'm an engineer. Data is what I live to. And data is critical. And if you're willing to say, well, we don't have the time, we don't want to put the effort, but fine, okay. But I think it's part of our charter, and one of the things I committed myself, that we do spend the time. And I do think economic analysis on the potential of what this thing is going to cost us is a very important point that a commissioner needs. I can't believe that any of us as homeowners or in business owners would ever make a decision without doing some analysis. Meanwhile, we're asking commissioners to do this with nothing. We have a flu right here, 1.28. It's been out there for at least 14 years. Financial sustainable analysis tool. It doesn't exist. It's in there. We need to do something in this charter that addresses that. We don't have a tool set. You know, we have Dr. Shimrad, who's an economist from UCF, has spoken at this dais before. $22 billion of backlog of roads today. Sustaina was a projection. Everything's F out there. None of the roads can be functional. They were going to put a bunch of new roads. They would still been F, beyond F, E maybe. I don't know what the next level is. But we're allowing things to be happening in this, and we're allowing our commission not to have any knowledge of what. It's important that they do, and if we don't have the time, dang it, heck with it.
Thank you.
But I think we don't back off because, we have a governor who's psycho and a commission. I'm sorry, I'm going to call him that. and a legislature is in our constantly getting in people's. We
thank
need
you.
to address this, and I
thank you.
strongly support this.
We have several people that have lifted the board up. I'm going to try to bring in.
Hand up a long time, Mr. Callen.
Okay, I'm going to speak, and then we go to Mr. Callen, then I'm going to see if we can wrap this up. Here's where there's several comments that have been made that are absolutely true. We've set a deadline that the public can bring items to this board. So we can't set a deadline for which we cannot hear new items. So we can't say that this is the time that prevents us from discussing this item. We either agree with it or disagree with it, but we can't tell the public that we can't see it do it because we don't have enough time. Otherwise, the time date that we set would not make any sense. So I agree with that. The big picture item for me is that we have to decide which end of the counter we want. We're discussing rural boundaries. So do we want to try to get the public to do both those at the same time? I'm not sure which one do we really want, and can we really get both of them through a vote by the public? So a rural boundary is something that this community has been asking for years. And it's been in the 90s, 98 or so, since I was on the board, we've been talking about analysis of projects, and that's still going on today. I'm not the only one on this board who's been involved in development projects. I can share with you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that real estate is more math than it is houses. And when you can do the math for these projects, you're building in all the costs, and that cost goes into the price of the product. So the comments that I would make is we can't tell the public that we can't do this because of time, but I think that we have to be conscious of the fact is what do we really want. So Matt, the last comment would go to the maker of the discussion, and then we have several other people that would like to speak, but I would like to ask one of them if they would make a motion to either accept or deny. But I would ask the board to consider seriously if we have the capabilities to get both of those through the board, or maybe we don't want either, maybe we want both. My job is to run the meeting, not to tell you guys what to do.
All right, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
do I have the floor?
I'm going to try to follow the same rules. We have several people on the queue. I'm going to ask them if they would pass on their comments, if their comments have already been made in total or in part. And if we can go back to the maker and ask for discussions and then ask for a motion for or against. Mr. Callen wants to speak.
I just joined in your initial comments. I thought the language proposal was too broad.
Too broad.
Because a development order can be a building permit,
Correct.
can be a variance, can be anything under Florida law defined in Chapter 163 or 380. And so I would have, at the most I would go would be limited to something that would deal with new development in the rural area. But then again, it's not rural area because you're changing it into urban area. So how do you do that? The other concern I have is true costs. I don't know what true costs mean. There's reasonable costs. I do share in comments that were made by others. This could have an effect like happened in California in the 70s, create a regulatory network that prevents more affordable housing. Then you have a whole component of this. Well, would you want to have an exception for affordable housing and for restricted units? So I think it becomes a public policy thing more than a charter.
Yes, and that's what I was trying to say when I was mentioning that if we did anything like this, it would have to be a kind of a surgical cut instead of a broad picture. We have several people.
It's a good idea. It's a really good idea. Okay. I think it needs to happen. I think the commission should do it.
It's going to come back to Member O'Neill. I'm going to ask, I have Ms. Riley and Weinsberg. Is someone going to make a motion, or are we still in discussion?
Before
we're going to go to, okay. Member Riley, and then we'll end with Member O'Neill.
Just for the record, as far as my comment, I agree with parts of what everyone has said. The one thing I have done quite a bit of, other than corrections and law enforcement, is sit on a financial board with a credit union for 18 years. That grew from a couple $100,000 to almost a couple $1 billion. Part by merger and part by new construction, brick and mortar. And whatever we did, there was never a conversation that we entertained that did not include financial analysis, both short-term and long-term. What that infrastructure looked like going into the picture, what the impact fees were that we were going to face, and what were some of the issues down the road because of congestion and all the other issues with transportation. in the given areas. So I believe, number one, it would be remiss of us not to have the discussion. I don't know in totality the scope of this particular issue and what it could do to our communities and to Orange County as a whole if we put in language that's so broad that it slows developers down. But I do think that we have a responsibility to every citizen that the costs are covered in a way where it doesn't necessarily come back to the person who's trying to buy a home, and now you can't hardly buy a home anyway. And I don't even know why we use the term affordable housing, because I don't even know what that means anymore in a community. But I do agree and want to at least be on record saying that it has to be something that we try to carve out with the scope that is at least sufficient enough to maybe get something accomplished in the process. That's it.
Thank you, Member O'Neill, for final.
I actually had also hit it. I'm not sure if I know we're sharing the same. I would just keep it very briefly, Chair,
Yes.
if I may. I also wanted to echo this. I really do strongly believe, really, as Member Riley just said, this really should be something that our commission has. Whether or not this is the right place or time to do it, or how we do it in a way that doesn't affect the type of development we should be encouraging, is something to consider. And I think to that end, personally, I would think that this is a type of thing maybe we take it to a committee and let the committee discuss it a little bit further, rather than just cutting the discussion off here. Clearly, there's a lot to discuss. So that would be my gut feeling, is that this should go to a committee, though it may not be ultimately something we decide to do, given some of the other proposals before this commission.
Thank you. Member Callen?
That's Harris? Mark?
Harris?
Yes.
Yes.
Bring your microphone down, Mark.
Thank you. So, Member Riley, great comments. I think what we're looking for is transparency, and I don't agree with Chuck on much, I don't think. But in this particular issue, I happen to agree with him. I think any kind of development should have a cost analysis with it. Again, I don't know if this is the time or the place. I just think this is common sense. If you're going to have a development being built somewhere, I think we should know what the hell it's going to cost us, well, forgive the hell word, but anyway, we should know what it's going to cost us. So I also think this is something that should go to committee and be discussed. And it honestly, I don't know that it should be part of the charter, but it should be done. And then we should have a cost analysis on any development that goes on in Orange County. I agree
Thank
with
you.
that. It's transparency. That's what it is.
Member O'Neill for final comments, and then we'll look for a motion.
Do I get the same amount of time as the sum total?
You get not as much time as Member Batchelor.
No. Thank you, Chair
Too much of an impact.
Thank you, Chair Batchelor. I appreciate that. I've listened to everybody's suggestion, and believe it or not, I agree with a lot of them. We have a limited amount of time, so we need to look at limiting the scope. We need to direct this not broadly over every single development order, but Member Riley is dead on target. She's never been a part of a board that didn't have a financial analysis before they made a financial commitment, long term. So this is not even a question in my mind. The question is how to do it. And here's how I think we could do it. We have a committee that is about to come out with a proposal on the rural boundary. And I noticed that all the folks in the audience that came up, for the most part, to speak in favor of item B, spoke in favor of the rural boundary. So let's look at the rural boundary, and let's look at the proposal. The proposal is, at least in the formation of, if there's a development order outside the urban service district, in that rural area, that it receive I believe, an 80% approval vote. I don't think if we have to pick one or the other, I would say this needs to be done before the development order, because if it's a land use change, land use changes go to plan unit developments, and then who knows what's going to be developed there. It needs to be at the point, Member Riley said, where you're making the decision. What is going to go in that PUD? What is going to go there? How much is it going to cost long term? So here is what I would suggest for a motion. Excuse me, am I interrupting your conversation?
Yes, you were, but no.
Okay, I don't want to. I know it's important. If we limit this proposal that is currently studying the rural boundary with the concept that a financial analysis be required for every development order prior to the vote by the Orange County Commission to approve that development order. A financial analysis prior to the vote be available to every member of the Orange County Commission. This is something they have already done. They've already gone 90%. They're on the 10-yard line here, Mr. Chair. Take it the other 10 yards, make that whole decision that you're waiting for the 80% vote or not. But for God's sake, give those commissioners the data, the information, the truth and what this thing is going to cost. Now, they may say, this is a net positive. This is a net positive, and we're going to go for it because this is going to help us pay down this massive amount of deficit that we've developed over time. But shouldn't, we were talking last week, we were talking last meeting, Mr. Chair, just give me a little latitude here because
Please,
I have been very patient. I have been patient.
No one is going to cut you off.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Except for me, maybe if you continue.
Thank you, sir.
But go ahead, please.
The last meeting we were here, we were talking about not putting in a 3 or 4 sentence disclosure about a projection that was done by the comptroller for voters to vote on charter amendments. And almost unanimously, everyone said, no, we should have, okay, I get it, Tom, I get it. We should have full disclosure. And that's what I'm asking, Mr. Chair, is for full disclosure. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Can I make a motion?
I do want a motion.
You can make a substitute motion, which has precedence.
And we can have discussion on the motion. Please, the motion, please.
I'd
Thank you.
like to send this idea to the ERIC committee to come up with some language that would be, or come up with, just do some analysis and determine if it's feasible or not feasible. And if it is feasible, come back with some appropriate language for the board to look at.
We have a motion. Member Cowan.
Mr. Chairman.
Seconded by Member Harris. Discussion on the motion. I would like to start discussion.
Could you repeat the motion? Because I'm getting confused, conflated. Could you repeat the motion, please?
Send this to the Government Sustainability Committee, chaired by Eric, and review the concept, and if there's appropriate ballot language that for the charter, then bring it back to the board. If there's not, then don't bring it back.
Is this a substitute motion?
No, that's the main motion.
I thought Chuck made the motion.
No, Chuck didn't make a motion.
Oh, okay. Tom made the motion. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and seconded by Member Harris, I believe. The thing that happens in development, and I know that I'm not the only one that sees this. By the time an issue gets to the Board of County Commissioners, are you all aware of how many steps it's been through? If we're waiting until it gets to the Board of County Commissioners to do a financial analysis, hell, that's way too late. Way too late. A lot of people have way more experience in banking and development than I do. But I have done these things, and I'm not the only one. When you get to the Board of County Commissioners, sometimes these projects have taken 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in the making. I happened to be on the board during Horizons West, and I was on the board when they started the building Lake Nona, and I was in Orlando when the airport was a strip mall. So all of those things have happened, but before they get to the Board of County Commissioners, a lot of steps have taken place. So if we're going to do this, I think that we should do it as understanding what the real development process is and have someone come to the committee to discuss that. And there's no developer of any measure that's going to bring a project and not be able to answer that question. Now, the answer is, can they answer that question to the benefit of the residents? I mean, I didn't mean to use the word benefit, to the satisfaction of the residents and in terms of what it pays for and what it doesn't. So I'm just cautioning the committee. I'm going to support taking it to the committee because I understand I understand what the residents are trying to do, but I think that this is going to take a tremendous amount of work, and we're not going to get there by saying we're going to give a financial analysis to the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr.
That
Chairman?
just doesn't work. We have a motion.
Discussion,
Yes.
Discussion?
Yeah, we're still in discussion. We haven't had questions.
I do have a question for Member O'Neill. Is this fiscal analysis that you're seeking, is this limited to the rural boundary or is this county-wide?
Well, I didn't make the motion.
Well,
So what I suggested, if we're going to limit the scope, let's look outside the urban service. We already know if it's in the urban service, it's more than likely going to be a net positive return.
So this proposal is, as far as the fiscal analysis, is limited to development that occurs within the rural boundaries, right? Outside the urban service.
Outside the
correct?
urban service boundary.
But isn't the committee still reviewing whether or not to adopt a rural boundary? And shouldn't that happen first? Because if it comes out of the committee and it's approved by the full board, you're essentially limiting development within the rural boundary, correct? Isn't that the intent of the proposed charter amendment, is to create a rural boundary very similar to Seminole County that really limits development within that boundary? Is that correct?
Member O'Neill.
Mr. Chair, the proposal is not to limit development. The proposal is to give full disclosure, to give the true cost of what that development is going to cost. And if I might finish, the true cost in an area where this really should be known. If you're outside the urban service area, we've already put in roads, water, sewer for the most part. It's outside that. How much is that development order? How much, what they plan to build, how much is that going to cost long term, and what is it going to bring back to the county?
I understand, but the
Question has been called. Is there a second for the question?
Second.
Question has been called, and there's a second on the question by Member Nguyen. Our policy is that we stop discussion if the call for question gets a majority vote. If there's any discussion, the discussion would be on the motion to call for question, and that would be the only topic for that discussion. Any discussion on the motion to call for question? If that motion passes, then we'll stop discussion. If it fails, then we'll continue discussion. All in favor of the motion to call for question signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the call for question signify by aye. No. With the noes, raise your hand. I see the cue, so I'm going to raise a no also. Roll call.
I'll do a roll call on the call to question.
Yes.
Okay. Member Johnson?
Yes.
Member De La Portilla?
no.
Yes.
Member Talon?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Member Johnson was a yes. Member De La Portilla was a no. Correct. Member Weinsberg? Member Weinsberg?
sorry.
I can't hear you.
Member Weinsberg?
Yes, I voted yes a minute ago. I thought you called my name. I can't hear most of you today. I guess it's me.
Member Talon?
Yes.
Member Arias?
Yes.
Member Grimer?
No.
Member Wynn?
Yes.
No.
No. Hardage? No.
But
Member Shira?
I have it backwards. The vote is for those in favor of calling for questions?
Correct.
Okay, no, I'm opposed to calling for questions
Oh,
right now.
well, me too. I say no.
Member Shira?
No.
Member Badra?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Staccardo?
Yes.
Member Adamson Prophet? Member Riley? Motion passes.
So the motion to call for questions passed?
I'm sorry. Member Batchelor?
I thought it said sociopath, and it said the motion passed.
Member Batch?
Yes.
Okay, now what is the call? All, the number in favor, number against?
It passed 11-4.
11-4. So what that means to the board and to the public is that the motion to call for questions passed. That ends discussion. Just for clarity, I'm looking at the DS and the number of people that wanted to speak, and that's why I voted against the vote for calling for question. But the vote to call for question is passed. Discussion is in. Now we have a vote on the main motion.
I believe
Can we
Tom
repeat
should
that?
repeat his motion.
Repeat the motion, please.
Read the motion back to us.
Staff will read the
Loudly.
motion back.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I don't have it.
Oh, you.
Chair, this is my best attempt at this motion.
Give it to us.
The motion is to move a financial analysis be provided prior to a BCC vote on new development orders outside.
That's
the-
not my motion. My motion was to move this to the Sustainability Committee and have the committee come up with appropriate language, if any, to present to the committee.
Let staff
But
appropriately.
what exactly, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, what exactly are we moving to the committee?
This idea of the
Okay.
disclosure.
Would you consider a friendly amendment to your motion?
Sure.
Would the committee request that the comptroller's office provide input to as whether they have sufficient capacity to determine and to provide this fiscal analysis for the county?
Mr. De La Patel, anybody gets to make a friendly amendment, but I would strongly advise that we not put that language in. And if we were going to, this is only.
For committee, okay. I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you. If we're going to do anything, correct the motion, it might be just to move item B to the committee as written. Okay, so
Come up with language if it's appropriate.
if the maker of the motion would accept that language and the seconder, we'll just move item B
Yes,
to the committee as written in our agenda.
yes.
That's the motion of the first and the second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Let me do a roll call.
Roll call,
on the
please.
motion. Member Jackson? Member De La Portilla?
No.
Member Weinsberg?
No.
Member Talon?
It's my motion, so yes.
Member Arias?
Yes.
Member Grimer? Member Wynn?
No.
Chair Hardage?
No.
Member Shira?
Yes.
Member Badra?
Yes.
Member O'Neill?
Yes.
Member Staccardo?
Yes.
Member Addison Prosser?
Yes.
Member Riley?
Yes.
Member Batchelor?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Motion carries.
So that item will be moved to committee, and the committee will judge itself accordingly. Okay, I want to say one thing. That was probably the liveliest debate that we've had on any motion since we started this committee, and I think that's a credit to all the members on the board. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate that as a board. It makes for good language, good communication, and let us know as members that we really are trying to do what's best for the people. All right, so I appreciate that. Let's have a short break. No break. Okay, no breaks. I do not want to have a break. All right, so we're going to continue with the agenda. If anyone would like to take a break, you're welcome to do that. We're going to go to item C, which is a proposal for topic including wetlands. Is brought by a member of the committee. And who's bringing this?
This topic was brought by a citizen chair.
Yes.
It was Ms. Milch.
Ms. Milch?
Thank you.
No, she's on the agenda item. Yes. Now, just for the public's sake, we have a process for the public to get items onto our agenda. And Mrs. Welch, did I pronounce it correct? Your name?
Milch, Gabrielle Milch.
Has followed the procedure to get an item on our budget. And we built this into our bylaws so that the public would not be solely at the mercy of this board for getting things on the agenda. So we appreciate you following the procedure, and we're glad to have you.
Okay, my name is Gabrielle Milch. I live at 252 Coble Drive, Longwood, Florida. I would like to have some words placed in section 704, point B1, and I would like to have comma or protected wetlands added.
Will you clarify that once more? I missed it.
So in section 704, point B1, it states that we'd like to add after water pollution, comma, or protecting wetlands into the charter.
Thank you. Thank you. Please stay at the podium. Can we have staff give us some clarification on what that would do?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So Section 704 of the Charter is one of the sections that implements one of the fundamental powers of a county charter under the Florida Constitution, and that is for the county charter to preempt municipal regulation, to say in certain regulatory areas that county regulations can prevail over municipal regulations. We have a number of examples already in Section 704 where the county charter preempts certain subject matters of regulations to the county. In particular, the way it works and what's in there right now is county ordinances that set minimum standards for regulating adult entertainment is one subject matter. B, protecting the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution. So you have that subject matter in there currently. And C, prohibiting or regulating simulated gambling or gambling. It goes on to say with regard to each of those three subject matters, but only to the extent that such minimum standards, county minimum standards, are stricter than the applicable municipal standards. The basic idea is on those subject matters, whichever set of regulations, county or city, is stricter is the one that controls. So the legal effect of the proposed amendment, as I just looking at it at first blush, would be that county regulations protecting wetlands, to the extent that they are stricter than regulations in a given municipality protecting wetlands, the county regulations would control.
Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you for all the service to our community.
Thank you very much. We're now open for discussion from the board and our questions from the maker. We have Member Nguyen, Member Shower, and then Member O'Neill.
No, that's,
Okay. She's off. Member Shower.
Yes, I just, from a legal point of view, how does adding verbiage, wetlands, to this when it already expresses itself in that section on water?
So currently, it provides that when the county has minimum standards protecting the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution.
Isn't that,
okay?
isn't that wetland?
I would suggest to you that it's not. Water pollution, regulations of water pollution can have impacts on wetlands, but that's not synonymous with regulation of wetlands. I'll give you all some examples, and these are only just some examples of wetlands regulation. One of the most common ones you see in imposed minimum standards from the Water Management District and then imposed in cities and counties is minimum setbacks from wetlands. All right. Some jurisdictions, they say, all right, there's your jurisdictional wetland. The Water Management District says you can't do any development any closer than this far. Set some number. All right. And then a city or a county may come in and say, all right, well, that's the minimum from the district. We're going to set a larger one and say it's this far back. And so you'd have an instance where hypothetically a city might have the standard up here, counties is further back. Very common one. Another species regulations you get with wetlands is what you're allowed to wipe out and mitigate. All right. There are some instances, not really around here in my experience, but in some parts of the state where even what we call isolated wetlands that other regulatory jurisdictions, the water management districts will say, well, they're wetlands, but they're not as environmentally important, so you can fill those wetlands and mitigate in another place, buy credits and so on. There are some jurisdictions where they say even isolated wetlands, you cannot fill them in and mitigate it elsewhere. Not very many of them, but I practice on a couple of them. So there are a number of different types of regulations that you have. Those are kind of the two main ones you run into from time to time.
You think that the legislation that the states pass doesn't cover that?
So it's a fair question. The last couple sessions, the legislature has run bills that has attempted to completely preempt the regulation or protection of wetlands from both cities and counties, saying only the water management districts can do it, which would have the effect of saying that minimum setback I mentioned there would have the effect of wiping out those higher standards everywhere in the state and saying only the water management district minimum. Those bills each session, and those are ones that the other local governments I follow or that I represent have us follow that very carefully. Those bills have not passed in these recent years. Will one pass someday? Might be, but it has not yet.
So you think adding wetlands is necessary in order to include that into the statute?
So I think the language, as I have always read this preemptive piece here, protect the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution, does not extend to say all county wetland protection regulations extend into the municipalities as a result of that language.
If we decided to go with this, would it go into the cleanup committee?
I would suggest it would not be cleanup. This is a substantive change.
Okay, understand.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is there's not a motion to refer this to a committee, is there? No. There's just discussion?
Yes.
Might I add to that then?
Please.
And maybe a suggestion. I think I understood what the counselor was saying. There's also a recent Supreme Court decision, Sackett versus EPA, which basically narrows wetland description. Pun intended, we're getting ready to wade into something that's extraordinarily complicated in both the Supreme Court decision, the Congress, the EPA, the legislature. So I just, maybe we can refer it to a committee. It certainly is meritorious for discussion, but just forewarn you that we're getting ready to wade into something that's extraordinarily complicated and further complicated by the Supreme Court decision I think it was last month. So maybe if there's a motion, I can understand exactly what our options were, but the only motion would be available is refer it to a committee. Is that correct?
Yes. And the other thing about that is that it's going to be as complicated as trying to work something out on transportation. This is not something that's really easy. My recommendation would be that as the word you use, meritorious, that's a great way to put it. It's something that we really think is valuable, just as we think transportation measures are valuable in the charter. But in terms of us trying to develop policy for that, I believe that would be very challenging, even though I agree with the concept personally. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I mean, a few minutes ago you said I would follow.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And then I have Mrs. Weinsberg, or is that Aris?
No, I did not.
Weinberg.
No.
Callum, member Callum. Yeah, please, go ahead.
He's afterwards? Okay. Mr. Chair, I believe this is a very targeted proposal for a very specific part of the charter that is much warranted. And the reason why I say that is wetlands provide the water that provide the municipal water for all of us. When we pave over wetlands, we are cutting short our water supply. Unless we start going to the oceans and desalinating. We all draw from the Florida aquifer. The wetlands pour into the Florida aquifer. They cross, once they leave the platted city of Orlando or whatever, they go into Orange County. Orange County feeds into the city of Orlando. There is no underground line at which this water filtering down through the wetlands goes specifically to Orange County, specifically to the city. So it makes sense. It makes sense that the county that has an environmental protection division that has developed a new wetlands code, that code govern the entire county and not just unincorporated parts of the county. This is a very targeted, very simple, very necessary change to the charter, and I am fully supportive of it.
I actually support it as well, but I would not support it going to a committee. It's just
where would it go?
I think it's just a great concept, but not one that this board should be taking up at this moment. That's just my opinion. We have 15 people on this board. Any other? And I firmly agree with the issue with the water. Not only with just the city and the county. The whole buckhead of the water is pretty much in Orange County, going all the way back down to Lake Okeechobee. So there's a lot to be considered there. It's just a really, really big picture. And someone mentioned saltwater. The county's already working on saltwater plants all the way over to Cocoa. So it's more complicated than it seems. It has merit, and it's something that the county should be doing. But I just would not support it for this board at this time. The county should be doing that, but I don't think we can do it. Okay, we more discussion. We're going to go to discussion, and then we're going to ask for a motion if I can. And then we thank you for the comment from the chair's perspective. I really do support it. But in terms of is it something that I think this board can do, I will not. But it's not my decision. It's to be the board. We only have Mr. Staccardo. You've already spoken. No, you want to speak again? No. Anyone else would like to speak? I see none. We call for a motion.
Mr.
Chairman, Mr. Callen.
Yeah, historically, the county had Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 wetlands, and I don't know if that still exists or not with what the new changes are. I do know wetland systems, if they're Class 1, they're connected to other systems, and they can cross jurisdictional boundaries. So if that's the case, then it makes some sense to have one set of rules to govern the wetlands. And so that may be appropriate, but I don't know what the current rules in Orange County are. That's unfortunate. I'm sitting here today. But the wetland systems in the county are somewhat connected at some places, not all, jurisdictionally. They cross jurisdiction boundaries, so there's some merit here.
I think there's a lot of. No, I've already had comments, Mr. Staccardo. I'm trying to judge myself the same way.
I appreciate your honesty, Chair, and I will second what Chuck has said. Wetlands provide lots of functions, and pollution mitigation is one of them. water retention, water percolation, all these functions. Well, Orange County has been very progressive in its wetland protection ordinances. We do have a class 1, 2, 3, but that's just been superseded by the new wetland ordinances, which have now taken to the next level. After decades of learning, we now have moved it to just another level, which I think actually is a good plan. What this is attempting to do is just allow the county the right to consider a wetland on annexation. So it's per issue. It's up to the commission to look at this. This gives them an option to look at, because we've seen in the past, in the recent past, where certain cities have destroyed hundreds of acres. And as we know, class 1, going back to the old terminology, some reason they don't respect the geopolitical boundaries of cities. They come in and flood our residents in the county too. And the county ultimately has to take care of the problem when, like Mary Jane flooded, for example. So I do think we should address this. It is a relatively simple addition to it. I know the world around us is complicated, but I can't control that. I can only control what's in this document. Bad things can happen to us outside, but I can't say we got 3 words here with a comma, and that's what we're asking for us to consider. So I would like to make a motion on this. I would move this to a committee to study the question of wetland protection throughout the county, including municipalities. That's my motion.
Mr. Chairman? Question?
We have a motion.
On that motion? Just a question. What committee are you proposing this go to?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's up to the chair. I'm going to leave it to the chair.
I mean, it's not a government structure issue. It's more of a sustainability issue.
I mean, I really think that if you don't beat this to death, it's not. It's relatively. It's literally 3 words.
I would be willing to support the motion if you assign it to the Sustainability Committee.
I'm going to, even though I've been trying to govern myself the same way I govern this board, I'm going to just make a comment on this. I think that this is really ill-advised, even though it's really great. We're getting ready to get into a fight with.
That's a slap.
We're going to get in a fight with the courts, with all the cities, with the state, and with all the water management district and the developers. It's just going to be a quagmire that we're just not ready for.
Mr. Chair,
I'm going to strongly encourage the board to acknowledge that this is a merit. What is the word?
Meritorious.
Meritorious.
Yes, big word.
Don't ask me to spell it.
For the county and for the board, but I'm going to strongly encourage us to not do this. So we have a motion in favor of the motion. Has a second. We're going to call for. I'm going to call for question. As the chair, is there a second on the question? The motion is to move this into committee, even though we haven't decided on a committee. No, but I can do that. I can do that.
I have great faith in him.
I'm going to. We have a motion and a second. I'm going to say that we've had enough discussion. But if anyone else wants to talk, hit your button. I'll call for question. Is there a second on the question? We have a motion and a second.
Wait a minute, where are you?
I'm skipping. If we won't, we've had
You're
discussion.
skipping discussion?
No, I don't have to skip discussion, but we've talked about it for quite a bit. Yeah. So if someone wants to have more discussion on it, we can do that.
Well, I think there was a question as to which committee it was going to go to.
No, I can decide. I can select a committee.
Can you
if the motion passes?
Can we make a suggestion?
I believe it should go to the Sustainable Committee.
Okay,
they're dealing with environmental issues. And I will say one thing about the fact that it's failed twice at the legislature the last couple of years says a lot. I think that there's more of a legislative, they're more aware that there's environmental issues in Florida, and impacting wetlands creates much more environmental issues than anything else. So I know the county is looking at a countywide wetland policy.
Correct.
I think it's meritorious to discuss it, to put it on the charter. So I would support that motion.
That's good.
My position is well known on this, so I call for questions. We have a second on the questions. I did. Commissioner O'Neill is correct. I did bypass further discussion on the main motion. Is there anyone that would like to have more discussion on the main motion? Seeing none. Then we'll vote on the call for question. All in favor of call for question signify by aye. Aye. Motion passes. We'll vote on the main motion, which is to move this to committee, and I would support this going to the Sustainability Committee.
The what?
Not yours.
To Dottie.
Gosh.
I'm sorry.
Yes, that's my, that's, you gave me the authority to do that. So anyway, that would be the suggestion. Now, however, we're going to vote on the main motion. All in favor of the motion signify by aye. Aye. All opposed signify by nay. Nay. Okay, the motion apparently passed.
Thank you. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. Another good citizen bringing stuff.
Congratulations.
Okay. I really don't think you all know what you just voted for, but. Okay. We're getting a little bit lightheaded here, but.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For point of clarification, it's been referred to the committee, right?
Yes.
Could I suggest, if I might, to the committee that in addition to the members, I hope you line up a number of people to testify to this, because again, it is a constitutional question now in the Supreme Court, and at the state level too, and the local level. So whether or not you get the legal advisor for the county or 1,000 Friends of Florida, the Audubon Society, or whomever, I mean, you're going to need a lot of input with all due respect.
Chairman, I can offer one thought on that. I think it is very important for the committee to have input concerning this. One thing with respect to the U.S. Supreme Court case, I'm familiar with it. That was directed to a question of whether or not certain wetlands were what are called waters of the United States under the Federal Clean Water Act.
Right.
So it touches on all wetlands law. I would suggest that Supreme Court case is not going to have any particular bearing to evaluating this, because that goes to federal wetlands delineation, which is not really what this would be digging into.
Mr. Chairman, final comment, if I might. I'd be glad to volunteer to serve the committee. I chaired the Florida Environmental Regulation Committee for 6 years, it seemed like 8. And we passed the toughest wetland protection rules in the state of Florida.
Chair make a motion that Member Batchelor be appointed to the Sustainability Committee.
That'd be an
Been second. All in favor? Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by aye. Motion is so carried.
Chair.
Member Batchelor.
See you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Chair.
Bring the coffee and donuts, Dick.
All right.
Chair, can you identify the maker of the motion?
The maker of the motion?
Yes.
The motion to take it to committee?
No, the motion to add.
I made the motion to add Member Batchelor to the committee, and Mrs. Shower seconded the motion, and it was unanimous in favor.
8 a.m. for you.
We got to go through 3 more things here.
There goes my diet.
Okay, we've done, thank you very much. Actually, that was a interesting discussion.
Everything's really interesting.
Committee final reports, creation of a public bank. First of all, I want to commend the committee members. We've only had really one truly new item to come before this board, and the creation of a public bank was one. Actually, the wetlands was probably the second one. That's been something new. Everything else has been kind of dancing and dressing up the edges, but those were actually 2 significantly new items. So I want to congratulate her and Member Jackson. Yes. And who else was on the committee? Chicardo. Yes. Great committee. It got probably the most public attention of any other committee. Statewide. When I was what I used to call a climber, this is the kind of committee we would want to be on, because you got a chance to experience a lot of different people, a lot of different decision makers, everybody coming before this committee. So I want to know we appreciate your effort there, and I appreciate you accepting the chairmanship of that. We really appreciate it. Now for your report.
Yes, the report was, can you guys hear me? The report was included in the agenda. I'm just going to go over some of the key points. Again, I want to thank our committee, Erica Jackson and Eugene Sicardo, for the efficiency of this meeting. So at our July 17th, 2023 meeting, we decided to form the creation of a public bank committee, and that was as a result of many community members coming and talking to us about this. All of the committee members, this is our first time hearing of a public bank, so it was new to the charter, but it was also new to all of us. And I want to thank Nelson Betancourt for actually bringing this to us, bringing the idea to us and having us start this committee. We had 5 meetings between September 2023 and January, and they were very well attended by both supporters and opponents of this proposal. Our conversations got very spirited, and every meeting was lively. At the committee's organizational meeting, we had that on September 8th, 2023. Chair Hardage, we had the honor of having you come to our meeting. Thank you so much. And you gave us like the roadmap of how to go forward, giving us specifically instructions that we gather studies conducted by other governments, the feasibility of a public bank, why did we need one, what would it look like, where does the capital come from, and would we be forming an actual bank? Just basically, what does it look like? And to assist the committee, we had Sean Poland he's the Treasury Manager of the Orange County Comptroller, gave a very informative presentation, and also Attorney Earl Stalin, who's the chairman of the Rocky Mountain Public Banking Institute. We gave them each a meeting to give us their presentations, and Earl Stalin came back again because there were many members of both local banks and the Banking Association that came drilling Attorney Stalin with questions, and so we gave him another opportunity to answer all of the questions. Mr. Poland gave us a history on public banks in the United States, and then gave us a very intimate discussion on how Orange County banks, how we operate with our funds. He talked about our investment portfolio, the scope of our banking services, and talked about the risks of a public bank. And then Attorney Stalin gave a presentation that was in October. He did appear via video conference, but he gave us the essential elements of a public bank, talking about that it's owned by the people, it has a mission to serve public good, and it is protected from political and corporate influence in its decision making. I will say that Attorney Stalin did see our final report and did make he proposed lots of changes, and we did not make those changes. Attorney Poland also had a very multi-page presentation. We just couldn't fit everything from both presentations in our final report. So even though he did object to our final report, that's why everything's not in there that he said. On December 4th, at that meeting, I asked our attorney, general counsel, whether basically it came down to, is this legally permissible? Can this be done? And he provided an overview of the relevant legal issues and the requirements under Florida law, and explained to us that there were some issues, specifically Chapter 280 of Florida statutes, that related to qualified public depositories that would appear to pose fundamental roadblocks to a Florida local government establishing a public bank. Also, that qualified public depositories are required to maintain FDIC insurance, which a public bank would not. Now, Attorney Stalin did talk about the Bank of North Dakota and that they're not FDIC insured, but ultimately that posed an issue as well. Clear how the local government investment policy requirements of Section 218.415 of the Florida statutes could be compatible with the public bank. And lastly, on Chapter 129 of Florida statutes, it would require that the budgeting authority for a public bank created by Orange County must lie with the Board of County Commissioners, which we thought may be incompatible with the vision of a public bank. It would be protected from political influence in decision making. So the board voted unanimously at its December 4th meeting that we would recommend no changes to the charter relating to the creation of a public bank. Again, we were efficient. The meetings were exciting, and I'm really proud of the work that we did. I'm really proud of Mr. Betancourt bringing this to the board, creating something new. I love the quote, whatever gets in the way of the work is the work, and I have no doubt that we will see you again. Thank you, Chair Hartis, for trusting me with this process, and it was an honor to serve. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. It was an amazing report, and you've set a high bar.
Woohoo!
She says you're an attorney. That's why.
I got you.
Okay, very high bar. We appreciate that very much. We have a motion to accept. I'm going to ask Vice Chair Shower to make the motion, if he will.
He's made a motion.
Into the mic so we can all.
Oh, yeah. I move that we accept the committee's recommendation and thank the committee for their work on this particular issue, which was kind of new to everybody.
And I'd like to second that, please. Motion made by Vice Chair Shower and seconded by Chair Hartage.
Discussion?
Discussion. We can have a discussion.
Thank you to the committee for putting this all together. And I remember going across the county, I think there was a troop of bankers that were following us.
Yes.
An association of bankers that was following us. One of the things that bothers me about this is there were members of the public who came forward and said, you know, we can't get a credit card, we can't do this, you know, and I understand the bankers, they said, you know, we have to look at risk, we have to look at risk, we have to look at risk. But the question is there, when this comes back, and I'm sure Mr. Betancourt will be back in 4 years, I'm not sure all of us will be here, or less, sooner than that, but I would suggest that you look at a credit union versus a bank. A bank has to have FDIC insurance for the most part. Very, very complicated. A credit union does not have all the same criteria. It's much easier. And it would be discretionary, not part of the Orange County, but discretionary, where people could deposit money in, knowing that it's going to good causes, whether it's mortgages for affordable housing or whether it's credit cards for people trying to establish credit. So I just throw that out there to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Betancourt. Yes.
Any member Nguyen?
Thank you, Chair. I move we adjourn.
We have to vote on the motion.
Oh, vote on the motion. Well, call the question.
Discussion. We have no further discussions. And as chair, and I'm sure Vice Chair, we also thank Mr. Betancourt for bringing this. And I see he's raising his hand, but we've given you lots of opportunity to make really amazing comments, and they've had an impact on this board and on our chair and vice chair of that committee. So we appreciate it, and we're going to call for a motion to accept the report from our chair, unless there are comments from her vice chair and her member Jackson. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to accept the report, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, congratulations for our first. Okay. The next item on the agenda are chair and vice chair comments or final comments from the board. I'm going to ask the board if they will bypass that because we've all talked a tremendous amount. However, if there's something that someone still believes they have to say, let me know. Seeing none, Commissioner, we don't have to have a vote to adjourn, but Member Nguyen has motioned to adjourn. I would second that. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. So adjourned. Thank you.